another episode of Sheroes of Science, where we celebrate the women shaping the future of STEM. In India, while women constitute approximately 43% of STEM graduates, they represent only 27% of the STEM workforce. This disparity highlights significant leaky pipeline, where many women who pursue STEM education do not continue in STEM careers. To address this gap, the All India Council for Technical Education introduced initiatives like Pragati Scholarship and the Tech Saksham program to encourage women enrollment in technical education. Additionally, the creation of supernumerary seats in Indian Institute of Technology increased female enrollment from 8% in 2018-19 to 20% in 2020-21. However, despite these efforts, in 2017, only 8% of students enrolling in STEM undergraduate programs in IIT were women. Further, while women enrollment in STEM courses has risen from, say, about 38.4% in 2014-15 to 42.6% in 2021-22, women still remain unrepresented in STEM leadership and research positions. So in today's episode, we are discussing the factors that influence how children perceive their abilities in STEM and how both school and families can play a role in encouraging young girls in these fields. Joining us today are two remarkable and experienced educators who we hope will help us understand these issues better and discuss strategies to bridge the gender gap in STEM. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Ruchi Seth, Principal, Lotus Valley School, Noida. With over 35 years of experience in education and youth development, she has worked extensively in organizations like CBSE, NCERT, WWF India, and SCERT. And she was a core member of the CBSE Mental Health Manual. As chairperson of the Sarv Sahodaya group of 15 schools, Dr. Seth has led key initiatives in education and youth development. An author and former chairperson of the International Award for Young People, she's been instrumental in organizing international exchange programs and youth activities across Northern India. Her contributions were acknowledged when she was honored with the CBSE National Best Teacher Award. Our next guest, Ms. Shailesh Bhandari, is again an exceptional educator with over 35 years of experience, having taught math and physics and also served as a headmistress and vice principal in a progressive school. A strong advocate for learner-centered education, she has promoted the integration of technology in pedagogy and focused on curriculum development and innovative teaching methods. Passionate about teacher empowerment, she has led many workshops and training sessions and significantly was part of the first hub team in the math teacher mentoring pilot eco education program way back in 2015. A humanistic educator, her focus has been on building social emotional well-being, leading many successful mindfulness programs in her school. Thank you both for joining us today. So, Dr. Seth, my first question is to you. When it comes to shaping a child's perception of their abilities in STEM, psychological and environmental factors play a big role. So what are some key psychological factors that shape an individual's concept of self-efficacy that we should be aware of?
Yes, 35 years, and I'm just thinking I'm sitting at a program where I'm still talking gender sensitization. Very early in my career as an administrator, school administrator and a principal, I was asked by the Government of India, the Education Department, to look into textbooks which reflected this gender biasness. And we actually combed the whole textbook, every subject, to see where we could change the pictures or the text. For example, a woman holding a broom. We said, why can't a man do it? Or a woman in the kitchen. Why can't we do it? From there, I went on to art education in our school, and I started analyzing what work do our children do in art. So when we tell the children, write about my mother, it was always the mother at the kitchen or tending to the family. Look at the depth with which this stereotype has crept into the subliminal areas of our minds, where we actually subconsciously we are echoing all those sentiments in our day-to-day activities, all the stereotypes that society has put into us, starting from women's suffrage to now where we are. It's been a very long journey, and this time has come at a cost. And I often tell the boys in our school, I said the time is very near when you're going to see that girls are going to be ahead of you, and we're very coming very close to that. However, these stereotypes and myths that come in from the on the day a baby is born, ये लड़की है या ये लड़का है, दो लड़कियां हैं तो तीसरा करना है क्योंकि लड़का चाहिए. The yearning for a son, and I believe this is a global issue, more pronounced in some cultures than in others. But I went to Korea and I said, here was a statue. That is a god that they pray to for getting a son, for bearing a son. Can you imagine? And so on and so forth. Right from there, and things are changing, but not so much as they need to. We've lost a lot of talent over the years. And we need to break these environmental factors, these psychosocial factors, cultural factors completely. Parents are getting more aware. India is becoming more aspirational country. And I think all these government and familial incentives that are given to girls now are beginning to give results. Incentives like motivation, तुम्हें पढ़ाई करनी है, बेटी बचाओ, बेटी पढ़ाओ, the various scholarship schemes that you talked about, these need to be in full force and accepted by everybody. The male population, which is a little more than 50%, as well as the female population. If all of us accept it, if our mothers or mother-in-laws are not the enemies of daughters or granddaughters, then things will start changing. If men start taking on the equal responsibility of the house and they help women to step out and express themselves through their work, that is what is required, and things are changing happily.
Some very, very important points,
Yes.
whether it's socialization, many things. Yeah, so as an educator and also a parent, so for all our viewers, I also want to share that she has two very amazing girls, and
Yes.
both are in STEM and both passed out from IIT. So both as an educator and a parent,
Lovely.
how do you think the home environment also shapes a child's interest in STEM? So apart from what we'd say, like, so you can talk about in school as well as at home. And more specifically, did you encourage your daughters to pursue the STEM field?
Yeah, so thank you for the lovely insights, Dr. Ruchi, you gave us. And, we share this vision, and it's so empowering to be in a space where we can talk about it, discuss it, and the future looks so much brighter because of that. So, yeah, one thing is that because these biases, these stereotypes are so deeply embedded, that anything that changes is not by default, it has to be very intentional. For me, whether as an educator, because I worked in a convent and I saw patterns very early, and I knew that those patterns will come back and will show up in the way I raise my children also. So it has to be very, very intentional. And then it has to be worked on, even in schools, like, teachers, they have to be told about gender biases because the noises are too many. The conversations are too many, and it takes going almost against the wind to be able to make any changes, whether it's at the family level or whether it's at the school level. Let me also share that there are teacher biases also. Teachers also come in with biases. And actually, the last man delivery is at the level of the teachers. And if that is biased, it translates very much more than it does at home. So it's very essential that we address gender bias at the teacher level consciously. We equip teachers to handle the gender bias, to address the gender bias, to challenge the gender bias, which is what I did consciously as a parent, as a teacher in class, and as an educator, to the level, like Dr. Ruchi said, combing the question papers to see if I'm a school leader, then this conversation would go on in my school. And in spite of that, I would see question papers with all questions about buying a fridge, cost price, selling price, all men going to do that. So much so that I had to ask a question, do women not go and buy refrigerators, or do women not buy scooters? So we have to work at that level, at the micro level, in order to bring about any change at all. And yes, I did work on it very consciously. I had empirical data. I had empirical data from a convent and from a co-educational school. I noticed that in an all-girls school, the gender bias, because like when a teacher's dealing, you tend to give leadership role to a boy, or science ka kaam aap kar lo, bulletin board decoration girl kar le. In a girls' school, that was much less manifested and much less visible. So that's where the gender bias of the teachers, parents, and everyone plays up.
Thank you both. I think, again, as I said, a lot of insights have come. So not just like the socialization process, and I think both of you, kind of highlighted one big piece, the hidden curriculum, or the like how the bias is there in the curriculum, and the teachers' mindsets, and and that gets replicated and that gets transformed to our students. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before that, I wanted to also ask that, like the common perception we hear is that boys and girls approach STEM subjects differently. So, Dr. Ruchi, did you observe, or your teachers have come back to you, or have you seen anything like that, that there's a difference in how different genders approach these fields? And how does this implicit bias play into, the whole scheme of things, so to say?
So that's a very interesting question because, whenever I think about children and their learning, the first thing I look at is how does the brain function? Is there any difference in the functioning of the brain? And can that be modified with practice and experience and training and whatever, scaffolding, etc.? And there is no evidence to show that there is any significant difference between the functioning of the brain of a girl or a boy towards STEM learning, whether it's mathematical or whether it's engineering related or it's science related or biology related, whatever. I mean, yes, there are certain hormonal differences which, make a male child or a female child gravitate towards certain subjects, but it's so minuscule that it's actually all external forces that make you go this way or that. So your question is, how do they think differently? I don't think they think differently. They think in a similar fashion, but we make them think differently. We make them say, "Kya karna hai science padh ke?" My mother said this to me, and she was a very evolved person. She says, "Why do you want to become a doctor? At the end of the day, you will have to be cooking in the kitchen." And I said, "Mom, that's coming from you." So, we are actually quite schizophrenic in our approach also. I think the anxiety lays somewhere in my daughter needs to settle down. By the time she finishes her education as a doctor, she may be too old to get married. Those were the days when we talked about a girl settling down by 20, 22. Today, that bias doesn't exist. So women can freely encourage other women, their next generation, to be able to blossom in whichever way they want. It's only these kind of stereotypes, myths, the neuroplasticity in your mind equally adapts men and women, girls and boys to be able to cope with all these science subjects, STEM subjects. So we need to get rid of the environmental factors and make them better more conducive for our students to learn STEM.
Shailesh, from your experience as an educator and parent, have
Yes.
you noticed any different, or as a practitioner, if at all, like how did you address this, in your classroom, in your guiding your teachers? How did you address this?
Yeah, so I would like to say that, my children often turn around and tell me, you were a maths teacher and you had these issues. Did you use us as guinea pigs, both our sisters, to prove a point? And I said, well, take it. I've given psychologists and society enough data to be able to kind of. But jokes apart, I think we socialize girls into roles, like, it a lot, of course. Theoretically, gender biases are broken, but we have socialized girls into roles that are not aligned with STEM. They are more aligned with arts, and they are more aligned with homemaking or humanities. The roles that we give girls are, of femininity, and femininity goes with not being curious, not questioning too much, not exploring too much. So girls that take up science often end up with the imposter syndrome. Like, the roles that society assigns us, they don't align with STEM. Let's face it that way.
Yeah, thank you, both of you. And so there was a study, a fact that I wanted to share, that, when children go to school, so when they entered school, young children, that preschool age, they all thought they were very capable. And 1 year down the line, many girls felt that they were not good at math. So from where did this belief creep in?
This is something that we ask teachers to constantly address. Like, once we are aware, this needs to be addressed, but it is very much there, even in the elite schools, may I say, of Delhi.
So implicit biases often affect, taking on from what both of you said, that often, affect how teachers interact with students. And, we have to understand that we are all also part of this society. Somewhere that socialization and the, stereotypes and biases we are not even aware of. How does these biases affect how teachers interact with students, and they kind of affect their choices? Shailesh, you partly answered that. So are there any kind of trainings that in your own schools, intentional training, that both of you, are aware of, or you feel that that is necessary to help teachers, unpack or unlearn so many lessons that they've been perhaps not even aware of, the biases that exist?
And rather, these biases are all over. They are omnipresent. They are in the teachers. We are as teachers. So importantly, it has to be a top-down approach to bring about a change. That sometimes when I go to schools and these things are existing, I have seen schools where the boys and girls sit in separate areas, or at least distinctively separately, at assemblies, in the rows or in the classrooms. And there is very little conversation that happens between the two sides. I find that extremely unpardonable, because in today's day and age, to have that kind of experience was quite mind boggling for me. So the mindset from here has to start changing. And it's, of course, when we attended ECHO program, your training program, our teacher who had gone for the training program came and conducted an in-house training program to take this forward. But I'd say this happens in our daily conversations. Conversation with parents, conversation with teachers, conversation with children, conversation between teachers and parents. So it cannot be a one-off thing as a training and then it's forgotten. It's got to be continuous. It's got to be conscious. It's got to be, as Shailesh said, intentional. And only then things will change. Of course, change takes time, but it shouldn't take so much time that we again end up losing in terms of progress.
When we set the vision for our school, then we have to address equity. And that reflects in the decisions we make, whether it's school discipline or whether it's career counseling or the programs that we let into the school. Like we had Ernst & Young do a camp for coding for girls, like, that intentional. And when we talk about doing up bulletin boards in class and we have meetings, then we make sure that this thread runs through our discussions, whether it is paper setting, career counseling. It's an intentional thread which kind of binds, because see, teachers are a microcosm of the society. And it takes time to change mindsets. So this conversation keeps going. A one-time workshop, it kind of skims off the surface of your awareness or consciousness. But a repeated conversation, like we did in ECHO, we did a monthly mentoring. So this conversation has to keep going. Only then things change. Otherwise, our subconscious biases take over.
So in STEM education, I think both of you did talk about traits like assertiveness and risk-taking are often celebrated. That social conditioning actually tends to discourage girls from embracing these qualities. It's not ladylike or feminine. So Dr. Seth, how can schools foster a growth mindset that encourages experimentation, risk-taking and failure and resilience, and while also fostering a strong sense of belonging for girls in STEM?
While you were talking, this thought was coming to my mind, and this movie that I'd seen, which was very inspiring, called Hidden Figures. It's about three African American women who break the glass ceiling despite all odds. And they actually help in the launch of the Apollo mission in NASA. And not just help, they're instrumental actually. And they worked against all odds. So I would say, show everybody this film and let all the students see it. And I think they will start thinking differently. I mean, that had such a profound impact on me that I didn't need to say anything. A lot can be conveyed. You can show inspirational films. You can have inspirational talks by people from all over the world. We are hyper-connected today. And, everybody is willing to help the younger generation. Mindful conversations. The surround sound for the children should be such that they feel inspired, regardless of the gender. And sometimes when one aspect of society lags behind, you give them a little incentive. So motivate the girls a little more, showcase their work a little more, put them in the forefront when you're showcasing the work. We have all these scholar badge functions, celebration of so many things. Have a special award for girls in STEM. Do it as a group so that it's not just one person getting an award. You are spreading that feeling of success among so many girls. So there's so many things that you can do. Yeah. It's just that we have to start doing it and more frequently.
So Shailesh, as an educator and again as a parent, what advice do you have to families? So I think Dr. Seth has talked about schools and what schools can do. So if you have to add to that, and also more importantly at home, how do you think the school can collaborate with parents and educate them, so to say?
So one is that in school, what I'd like to add is that when girls question and they engage in discussions, we have to be, very supportive and encouraging. Again, the intention of the teacher comes in there. Dr. Ruchi just mentioned that the neuroplasticity theory says that there's barely any difference yet. That notion is deeply ingrained, and that's an uphill fight. So to counter that or to negate that, what teachers could do is science, like any other field, also needs hard work. So if you're hardworking, I'll praise that. All right, so now that is a level playing field for all girls too. I will applaud perseverance. I will scaffold you when you fail. All right, so then it becomes a level playing field. So now I'm not talking like whether you were born with the talent to be able to fix things or play mechano. I'm talking about what you have currently and what you have to offer. So then that makes it easier for the girls to stand at the same level. Much like, we had the caste bias and all, this also needs affirmative action. The government is doing so much. We brought in quotas, we brought in scholarships. Similarly, teachers in class, right up till there, we need affirmative action. Point out, celebrate girls. Let them see girls successful in science. So coming to the parents, like I was aware because I was a math person myself. And when I had daughters, for me, it was personally very challenging to know that this part of life is not accessible to my children. I mean, how could it be? I had to give them access to everything to open up their personality. All right. And then that applied to my students as well. But every parent might not have the resources or, the ability to strategize. I literally had to do that, to strategize to ensure that my girls succeed or my students succeed. So that way, the school can support when there are award functions, like, let there be awards, like Dr. Ruchi said, let there be an award for girls that are, that are successful in science. Let us bring in speakers, women speakers, so that girls see their kind. Parents see other young women successful in academia or fields of science or technology. Let them come for science fairs and see, senior girls doing the activities. So then their mind opens up, like, who doesn't want success? We have times have changed and parents want their girls to succeed. So let them see how they can succeed also in technology.
Things are changing, and these are the messages that we are giving to our to people around us, to the people who are most impressionable, that is the children. India has become a very aspirational country, and skill promotion is happening right at the governmental level. Girls are given a lot more scholarships and incentives to move forward.
I just wanted to ask from you the presence of mentors. So we've talked about role models, but what role do mentors have for young individuals, and especially girls who want to undertake this journey, which may be arduous?
I think the role of mentors is imperative in this. As has been mentioned by my co-panelists, it's important that the child feels safe when they are asking questions. And that's one of the important roles of a mentor, to be able to encourage everybody to be able to ask any question, regardless of the subject, regardless of their gender, to be able to ask any questions freely. Interestingly, I must tell you that we have a sanitary pad making machine in our school. And you will be surprised to know that the boys are at the forefront, making the machines, making the presentations, and even on Pariksha Pe Charcha, when Modi ji was taking a round, he stopped by to see, and the boy was making the presentation. The Mahanari concept that we put this whole project under, this was promoted by the boys. And I think that is a huge step forward. And this couldn't have happened without mentoring. This couldn't have happened without boys considering it a safe space. I had a boy who wanted to do Kathak. So when we were seeing him perform on the stage as a small piece in a dance drama scene, I said, this guy has so much fluidity in his body, his movements and all. I called him to my office and I asked him, I said, do you dance? So he said, very sheepishly, he said, yes, ma'am, but I haven't told anybody. I said, why? You are so good. Can I meet you or your mother? He said, ma'am, please don't let anybody know. I said, why? They'll make fun of me. The boys will make fun of me. The next time I told my teacher who was doing the cultural program, I said, this boy is very good. She says, yes, ma'am, I know he's learning Kathak, but he doesn't learn in the school and he doesn't talk about it. I said, see if you can encourage him to perform. What a performance he gave. I think better than any of the girls I've seen performing in my school. Then I called his mother, and years went by, 2-3 years went by. Today, he's a dancer. And his mother was the one who was encouraging him very quietly in the home. We encouraged him in the school. That's the impact, the profound impact of mentors. And if you have mentors all around you, then there is no holding back. The talent just unfolds.
I have a similar story. Like Dr. Ruchi said, there was this young boy from class 10 in my earlier school who wanted to start the culinary club. And it was unheard of in a school where, boys will be boys is celebrated. This child felt like, who's going to support me? He came to me, he said, no, teachers willing, because you need a teacher mentor. And teachers don't believe that I'm going to pull this off. So will you do it for me? I said, yeah, under the condition that you don't miss any classes and don't bring me a bad name. So we started the culinary club and he started the bake sales. And then so many boys joined because they could see somebody like them, in a non-conforming role. It's very important to see people like us. That is why, where leadership mentors come in, like when Kamala Harris was there, it ignited so many girls, like, somebody who looks like us, who can be there. So why we can't be there? We need visible role models And those role models, as well as other senior people, can be mentors. Girls who have done well these days is a very positive sign. They are coming together. There are NGOs, there are girls who are stepping in for other girls and supporting each other. Again, breaking down that earlier embedded notion of, women bring each other down and all that kind. Women are supporting, and my daughter is the CEO of a company and has had a baby. Now, she's looking for people who will mentor her, that you can be a CEO and you can be a mother and you can pull that off. So there are other women who have rallied around her with inputs, with ideas, with support as to how you can do what was earlier considered, unthinkable. So I think mentoring at the school level, there are senior girls mentoring the junior girls. We tried that out in school for counseling. Like I have a girl problem and I have adolescent issues. Then we assigned a mentor from class 11 or 12 who would talk to you, who gets you and who looks like you and who has faced the same challenges as you. So I think a very significant part of encouraging and inspiring girls to do STEM is to have mentors and have role models. So if we have girls who have been successful to mentor on how to apply for jobs, what kind of companies to look at, alumni come back to mentor young students. I think that also we tried it out.
So as we move ahead, like thinking about how do we create a lasting cultural shift in order to support STEM?
So fast tracking change is a bit of a double-edged sword. I'm reminded of that boiled frog syndrome that I learned about in one of the training programs, that if you raise the temperature too high, all of a sudden the frog dies. But if you do it 1 degree at a time, the frog adapts. So it has to be an adaptive process and an evolutionary process, which I think is happening. And if organizations like ECHO continue to do what they are doing and reach even to the interiors of India, where these biases stem from so many deep-rooted sources, the social stigma attached to certain jobs, the more progressive parts of India and the metropolitans, etc., is already changing, but not fast enough, as you said. And I also emphasized this point in the beginning. But what's going to happen eventually is the young people are going to lead the change. The peer educators that I was talking about, they are going to be in the job market soon. They are going to be holding the family soon. And that's where we feel it takes about a generation to change. And I think we are coming to that point where it's going to be a tipping point where girls and boys will be on a level playing field where STEM is concerned.
I see a lot of hope, surprisingly, in a developing country like ours, where we are more open to change because, we are still moving forward. Like, we already, Modi ji, we've broken a gender stereotype with Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman being the finance minister. We had Indira Gandhi. We celebrate women. They are our women presidents that have been there. Then media plays the kind of movies that are coming up. I think they have a massive impact. And we have seen, a couple of movies that came up, Mrs. and all, like people have started. Then Queen came up, in one stroke, because the power is so much. So I think media and celebration and the intentional effort where schools and workplaces come together. Right now, it is urgent, but sadly, like Dr. Ruchi said, it can't be done that quick. We say it has to be massive action and multi-pronged. And I think we have the magic wand that is social media.
Social media is going to be a transformative tool for us. Women have fire in their belly. And in a country which is trying to express itself through its women, they are going to take the lead very soon. They are marching forward with very long strides. Within that fire in the belly is a great desire to prove that we are as good, if not better, than the other half. All these factors put together will drive the change, not 1 degree at a time, but 5 degrees at a time.
As we go towards wrapping this session, what is your advice for young girls or women interested in pursuing STEM? How do they stay motivated?
Girls have to take up space and expand, and they have to cross over that boundary, that mindset. Earlier, parents had a lot of influence. And then mummy, papa became redundant and ma'am became more important. And the peer group became more important. Now, ma'am's also becoming a bit redundant, and the social media and technology, so those have a far-reaching influence, and I think that is where the empowerment can come from. There are so many things that we can do. One is a social commitment of women support women, plus education. We've discussed so many ideas that Dr. Ruchi, like in a school only, she started that kind of movement, and we need more schools like that where it will be addressed. The government is working, no doubt about it, but where government is working in schools, but if we have a dropout rate of girls so high, how do we even expect to reach that level of empowerment and that level of motivation for girls? So there's a list of lots of things that we can do, right from changing the toys to the kind of books to the kind of stories we tell. Can't have the damsel in distress stories anymore. In fact, that was another thing we addressed in our primary school, that we do not intentionally pick up stories where girls need to be protected. But it has to be done at many levels. And it's like we handle the caste system, those biases. We have to go after this one.
I fully agree. It's got to be a multi-pronged approach. The surround sound, the surround opportunities, the surround scaffolding and the mentoring, monitoring, everything that we are doing. It should give a message that you are welcome into this field, you are equally capable, and you can do it, to the women, to the girls. These inspirational stories are all around us, whether it is the mission to Mars, which was an all-women mission. I think these stories are beginning to have their impact. And let not these stories die down. Let not this inspiration die down. In fact, just keep fueling the fire of inspiration.
Thank you both for sharing valuable insights. So, as we continue to explore and address the barriers that our girls and women face, especially in STEM, we have talked about some aspects that we can all take ownership for, like creating inclusive culture, be it at home or wherever, our area of influence, so to say. And I think, Dr. Seth, I really like what you said about spotlighting, like the good work, and don't let the stories die out. It's the messaging, the communication, and Shailesh also talking about encouraging girls, young people to take up space, and encouraging, young leaders in different fields, so that it's all about equity by design. So when there is a woman at the table, she will also look at that aspect, because very often what happens is the design team, or the innovation team does not have a woman, so they don't have that understanding of what that person would kind of need. So it is important for us to encourage that. And as a society, as a whole, and as individuals, we all need to take this up. I think the Indian government has a lot of programs to encourage girls. So now it is up to us. And every step that we take to empower young girls brings us closer to the vision that all of us have of a gender equal world. So to our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in to Sheroes of Science, our second episode. And let's keep nurturing this curiosity, supporting each other, and inspiring the next generation of women to lead in science, innovation, and beyond. Let's together make a pledge today that we will all do the best that we can do in this. So thank you, everyone, for being there. Take care, stay safe.